You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast.
You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. My name is Shawn Wilkie, and along with my awesome co-host, we interview the innovators in this space every week. Ivan, please get us started.
Hi, I'm Ivan Zach. Really excited about our today's guest, Yaroslav Azhnyuk. Yaroslav is a co-founder and CEO at Petcube, a technology company dedicated to connecting pets to internet and giving them a voice. Prior to that, he has co-founded internet initiatives and NGO dedicated to promoting digital literacy and amzn.to, a digital advertising boutique that he later sold to Prodigy. Yaroslav is passionate about pets, people, models of thinking, and reinventing the way people learn. One other thing that is very exciting to me is because Yaroslav and the Pet Cube is coming out of my homeland from Ukraine and has been successful in both professional, so the veterinary side of pet industry, as well as consumer side. Yaroslav, welcome to the show.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
So I'm very excited. I wanted to meet you for a long time. I knew that this was a successful startup from Ukraine, and I was kind of, I knew about you, but because this is more a pet consumer sort of side of things, I was more on the veterinary side of things. But you also mentioned that there are things that you're doing in veterinary world. Let's connect the two. But first, tell us, please, what is PetCube?
Petcube makes home cameras and software that helps people to connect with their pets. So we make a bunch of cameras. Some of them are interactive, like having a treat dispenser or interactive laser point toy. And some of them are just regular webcams that are equipped with our own software that helps people to take care of their pets remotely and know what's going on when you're not at home. And
That's
we've been
awesome.
around for about 9 years now, and we're best-selling camera in the U.S. and provide a bunch of other services such as video recordings. We're using artificial intelligence to identify when your cat or dog is in the frame, when they're doing any noises, barks, meows. We do a bunch of interesting stuff also with vets. We have a service called Vetchat that allows to solve some of the vet cases just by telemedicine, just by quick chat. Also, we have recently launched a service called Emergency Fund, which acts in a way similar to insurance. Basically, gives you access to up to $3,000 in emergency funding if anything bad happens to your pet. Hopefully not. So that's pretty much what we do. And there's lots of other stuff that we plan to do.
That's awesome. So there's a lot of directions, and I assume there's a lot of pivots as the business is developing. There's different directions that you pick. I'm sure that you're not even in charge and control of all of them. But where is the original idea came from? Why cameras? Because you have engineering background, and I assume it's software engineering, and then there's also a hardware component. So how do you come up with the idea to combine the two? And then what was the lift like? Because I'm always scared of hardware startups. Like software is cool. You can do it a lot on infrastructure and, platforms that exist right now. Hardware is a heavy lift. So how did you arrive to hardware software combination, and where was the idea coming from?
Starting from the last thing you mentioned, there is actually a very fundamental difference between a software company and any other company. For any business, you have supply and demand. And like your speed of growth is limited by how fast you can grow both. But for software businesses, you basically have unlimited supply because software is so easily replicated, or for media businesses, right? So the question is only about demand. And for any other business that is not just software, you need to kind of catch up with both. So that is indeed something that's more difficult than traditional tech software business. But again, people have been doing non-software businesses for many, many years. So that's not something very new. And indeed, the idea came to my co-founder and friend, Alex Neskin, and he had a dog. And he wanted to entertain his dog when he's away. So he came up with an idea of a webcam with a laser pointer connected to that webcam and two motors that can rotate that whole contraption. And that's how Petcube started. It wasn't the primary intention to make a business. It was just solving one man's problem. But then friends were basically pretty excited about this whole thing, and we thought, okay, maybe there is a way to build business here. And what we figured out, like the key insight, was that there is no company that would really leverage all the achievements in technology space of the last couple decades to create great, beautiful products for pet parents. And we thought, okay, this is a good niche. We could become Nike for pets or Apple for pets. Like pets and pet parents deserve the products of similar quality as we people have with all of our smartphones and laptops and so on. So that was the very first idea, and we also were joined by our third co-founder, Andre Klan, whose primary focus is design. So if someone who is familiar with our products would most often notice that, okay, these are product that are looking real great, real sharp, and that's something that's distinctive about Petcube brand. And that's basically the vision that appeared very early on in the first months of us thinking about the business. And it stayed like that until now, and will probably stay for many years more. The mission of the company is to connect pets to the internet and give them a voice, meaning learn how we can understand these pets. And that's actually what you do if you have a lot of data, and we have a lot of data about how pets are behaving when they're not at home. And are fantastic things that you can do, like if you invest a little bit into computer vision and actually try to identify pet behavioral patterns based on their behavior, based on the images of their behavior, you can do a lot. And there's lots of research, as I'm sure you guys know, that is just piling on shelves that is not being productized. So that's part of our long-term vision is, being able to say, hey, your dog is sick or has anxiety issues or gets really disturbed when a car drives by. So maybe, just a different room in your house, something like that. So there are lots of interesting opportunities here. And I wouldn't say the vision really changed that much from day one.
That's great. And this is just an absolutely incredible company. I was scrolling through your products on Amazon, as I'm sure that's one of the sources of a lot of your guys' business. And I noticed Vetchat built into your application, I think. And so I think let's take a directional change and see how this business connects to the veterinary clinic and what that looks like and who you partner with. And tell us a little bit about that side of the business.
Yeah, totally. So that's a relatively recent addition to a number of services that Petcube has to offer. And overall, the last few years, and particularly after COVID started, were big growth years for Petcube, as I know for many others in the pet industry. We've been growing like 4x year over year, and we launched Vetchat about a year ago. We've been seeing tremendous growth there. So what we're doing is we're partnering with a company that provides kind of the back end of the service and manages relationships with vets and pet behavior professionals. And on our end, we provide user-friendly chat to Petcube customers who can, at any moment of their day, go and ask advice on any topic they might have regarding their cat or dog. And what we're seeing is that 60 to 70% of cases that really disturb people regarding their pet's health could be resolved just using a remote consultation. So you don't need to, pet your cat or dog, go maybe spend an hour in traffic trying to get to your appointment at the vets, and obviously also saves a lot of vets time because not every issue needs an appointment. So overall, we've seen amazing reaction to that service, and we're definitely developing it. And there are lots of things that you can do just on the software side to make things better and easier, both for vets and for end consumers.
That's absolutely fascinating.
That's very in line with sort of couple progressive companies that are combining the veterinary services with this sort of consultancy. And so what does it look like if the consultation has to result in the visit? And there's a lot of restrictions around veterinary client patient relationship creation. So can you speak a little bit more on that side of things? So let's say someone had a chat and conversation and it sounds like there's more information required. What happens then?
Yeah, I guess that the first really useful input would be that, okay, this looks like something that would not be easily resolved just remotely. So you would need to go to a vet, and you would be either advised to, choose a vet that is close to you, or you could choose a vet that is recommended by a professional on our service. And it's always up to a consumer, if you have a person you have a relationship with, your vet whom you work with, that's totally fine. Or if you need a recommendation, as many of our consumers actually who have just got a pet and maybe that's their first vet visit, then obviously our professional can recommend you someone in your area, which obviously varies because we have consumers from all around the States and Canada, and also Australia, and now Europe is joining this Q4 as well. So that's how it works.
That's so awesome. I want to double click on it though. Who do you refer them to, and how does that work? Because there's going to be a lot of people that want to call you and talk to you about that.
Yes.
I'm not sure if I can go into details regarding that. But let's just say that those are good and vetted vet professionals.
Vet professionals.
Nice
I like
answer.
that. All right. Well, let's go back a little bit then from the point of innovation, because we had a lot of device innovations in here, and you're right. The main purpose is to take the big difference between the innovation and invention is that invention is something that stays on the shelf in the lab, and innovation is something that is taken to market. So when you decided to combine the software with the hardware, how hard it was to get in the hardware? Because that's to me always sort of a painful thing. And how did you say, okay, there's a business here? And especially, I mean, it's not hard to go outside of Ukraine if you're starting a startup, but then with the hardware, I think it would be a little difficult because you need the supply chain organized and everything else. So what was the journey like, and when did you say, okay, we're going to have a business that will be targeting North America as a customer, and we'll build a supply chain that actually services that market?
So I think different people might have kind of different mental blueprints for what Ukraine is, or what entrepreneurs in Ukraine are. But the reality is that I'd say hipsters are the same in any big megapolis in the world. Young people watching the same YouTube shows and same Netflix and yada yada. So very early on, just as we were starting, we knew that, okay, this looks like a global scale innovation. So it just makes sense to launch it on the world's biggest market, which is obviously North America for pet care and for many other things. So I think we were three guys, 23, 24 years old back then. And none of us, like one of us, I think, have been to the US previously, but obviously not for business. And none of us has launched a software product company, let alone hardware product company before. So it was, first it was like, whatever, it's like hardware, not hardware, we're just gonna figure this out on the way. The key driver was that, okay, we have this idea for something we made for ourselves that we believe other people would also love. And we kind of can imagine how it should look like and how it should work like. And the rest we're going to figure out. So we started designing, started working on it. We figured out that we'll do a Kickstarter campaign to just validate the interest. We did that. That did remarkably well. I guess we got $250,000 on our first Kickstarter campaign, which was fine. It was enough money to get started. And we started raising some money from investors and so on. And, one thing led to another. But yes, building a hardware company is definitely tricky, especially for young and relatively inexperienced founders. I did a bunch of mistakes, did a bunch of things wrong. And at some point, I think it was like 2016 or something, like 17. And we were already doing well. We're like selling tens of thousands of these cameras, making millions of dollars in revenue. And we were suddenly realizing that every second week, one of our friends' hardware company goes bankrupt. And we're like, whoa, this is scary times, scary times. And fundraising was difficult. We raised, over these 9 years, we raised about $25 million in funding from different venture capital firms. We went through Y Combinator program. That has been super helpful for any entrepreneurs listening to us. Just big advice. Apply to YC and try to get in. That's one of the best things that can happen to you. And, but we figured it out. I guess what is really important if you're doing something with hardware is that you should understand your unit economics really, really well. And small details matter, like 50 cents on your cost of unit matters a lot. And you should know it to half a cent what your bill of materials looks like and how much you spend on freight and other expenses and what your return rates are and so on and so forth. And then just finding good partners for manufacturing is also important. But then, there are advantages for hardware companies, and it's not a coincidence that some of the world's most valuable companies, such as Apple or Tesla, are hardware companies. And these companies, they have this interesting quality of being able to retain consumers. And actually, the churn for hardware products, if you can really make a product people love and use a lot, your churn is low, and you can build an ecosystem on top of it and offer different services and so on and so forth. So this has been something that we think is probably most remarkable about what we're building, that an average Petcube customer uses their device for about 50 minutes per week, which means people spend more time talking to their cats and dogs than they spend talking to their parents.
That's great. So, Yaroslav, a couple of questions for you. First is Christmas is coming. Everybody's talking about supply chain issues. How is that for you guys at Petcube? If people listen to our episode and they want to go out and grab one of your devices, how have you guys been able to manage with all of the COVID-related supply chain issues?
Totally. Yeah, there have been challenges, and we've been fighting hard to keep the prices from raising and keep the costs where they used to be. We had to increase slightly, but we're still offering very good user-friendly line of products. Starting from a $40 camera to $250 full-featured Petcube 2. So I think everyone can find what they need. And we're actually good for this holiday season. So we have all the inventory we needed. And yeah, I guess that's just, experience of the previous years comes into play. We started, getting ready for it early, and that's how we managed.
Just like Santa Claus. That's great.
Exactly.
So we're getting to the end here, and again, we blew through 20 minutes so fast. But before we jump to our last two questions, I want to ask you. So you're still the CEO of the company, right?
Yes.
And you lived a number of years in the U.S. after you guys went through the Y Combinator and you settled there. So and now you're back in Ukraine. So can you tell us why? Can you advertise our country to everybody and tell why do you think it's better to be back home in Ukraine?
Well, yeah, I guess it's sort of hard to say, hard to really pinpoint where you are if you're spending some time there and some time here. But yeah, I would say 2014 to 2020, I would spend most of my time in San Francisco with occasional travel to Ukraine. And we have an amazing team of engineers and designers and marketing salespeople here. And just before COVID, I figured, okay, I'm gonna live some time in Ukraine because I was really kind of missing it. And there's lots of interesting stuff happening here in culture and kind of just in the idea space. I think that at this point of time, Ukraine is one of the most interesting places in the world to build an intellectually heavy product or company because it has these three characteristics that are unlike any other place in the world at the given moment of time. And those three characteristics are relatively low cost of educated labor. I think actually talking about educated labor, it's one of the lowest, if not the lowest in the world at the given moment. And I'm not only talking about software engineers, which everyone probably at this point knows that, okay, it's great to hire engineers in Ukraine, but also talking about lawyers and architects and you name it. So that's one. And another is there is a wide breadth of these educated people. So you can actually build pretty sophisticated teams on the intersection of different areas with people who are capable of producing a world level class product for like 1/5 of the cost that it would cost you to build the same team in the US or Canada. So that obviously gives you a fantastic advantage. And the third thing that's the least obvious for an outside spectator is that there is an incredible surge of new ideas currently happening in Ukraine, and that is actually explainable if you think that this is a nation that didn't have its own country for hundreds of years and finally got its independence and fought for it with the collapse of Soviet Union, and sort of got its independence the second time after the Revolution of Dignity in 2014. So there's a fantastic surge of these new ideas, and it manifests itself in many things, from arts to philosophical ideas to music to architecture to fantastic food scene here in Kiev and a number of other major cities in Ukraine. So being both Ukrainian and sort of American, spending 6 years living in the States, there is a fantastic opportunity to combine those two. And I think for the US entrepreneurs, there's still a fantastic opportunity to come to Ukraine and partner up with local folks and build really ambitious global businesses. And for investors, it's also a fantastic opportunity. It's one of the most underinvested countries in the world. If you look at like even tech sector and the value of exits that happened over the last decade, companies built by Ukrainians, and amount of investment, foreign capital investment per $1 billion of value created, it's the lowest in the world as far as I can tell from the latest research by Atomica, which is a large European fund. So lots of interesting stuff here. But hey, I love Bay Area, and I have probably never seen such a concentration of really smart, ridiculously smart, and talented and ambitious people as in Bay Area, and it is still so.
Love it. Can listen to that all day long. And that's why I have 35 people in Ukraine on my team. So very, very exciting. And I agree and sign under every word you said there. But unfortunately, we blew through all the time that we promised our listeners. And there's two questions that we ask at the end. What is the video, book, a TED Talk, a podcast, something that you would recommend that would be interesting to our listeners? So that's question number one.
Sure. Well, there are a bunch, but hey, for a book, I think High Output Management is a fantastic book for any manager or CEO, founder to read. It's by Andy Grove, a CEO of Intel, and kind of an icon and a mentor to many, many people in Silicon Valley. And he's been super generous to find the time to put all of his learnings into this book. And it's a fantastic read. And for podcasts, I really like Lex Fridman's podcast. I think it's one of the best. So I really enjoy listening to that. And for just the videos, there is an amazing two videos actually on macroeconomics called Keynes versus Hayek, which is basically a rap battle between two guys who pretend to be two economists, Hayes and Hayek. And it's hilarious. You guys should watch it.
Awesome. And then the last question is, we're looking for another innovator in the veterinarian space that you might know that you think we should have come on the show.
Yeah, I guess that would be Zubin Bete from Fuzzy. He's actually based in San Francisco and also doing amazing work with vets. His company recently raised another large round of funding. So he would be a great guest.
Thank you so much for listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. If you want to hear about our new episodes, please follow us on any social media channel. Also, you can check out our website at veterinaryinnovationpodcast.com. See you next week.